The Rage Virus Origin. The Rage virus, a terrifying creation at the heart of the 28 Days Later universe, wasn't born from nature, but from human ambition. Designed to control aggression, it mutated into a force of uncontrollable violence, sparking a nationwide collapse. In this video, we'll explore the origins of the Rage virus from a failed scientific experiment in a Cambridge lab to its catastrophic release into the world. Discover how one virus turned society into a nightmare in just days. If you love awesome content like this, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell so you never miss an update.
Stop! You've no idea!
Origins of the virus and initial outbreak. The Rage virus was created at the Cambridge Primate Research Center, where scientists were performing behavioral experiments on chimpanzees. These primates were deliberately infected with a genetically engineered form of the virus intended to simulate intense rage, supposedly as part of a study on violent impulses. A scientist at the lab explained that the chimpanzees were dosed with a type of neurological inhibitor, suggesting that the virus was designed to suppress reason and enhance aggression, possibly in an attempt to understand and eventually cure rage-related human disorders. A trio of animal rights activists broke into the facility to release the chimpanzees, unaware of the dangerous pathogen the animals carried. As soon as one of the cages was opened, a chimp immediately attacked and bit one of the activists, transmitting the virus almost instantly. The infected individual then turned on the others and the attending scientist, unleashing the Rage virus on the human population. Rapid spread and societal collapse. In the following days and weeks, the Rage virus spread like wildfire across Great Britain. The infection was initially misidentified as a series of coordinated riots, as the behavior of the infected resembled mass hysteria, or civil unrest rather than a biological outbreak. This confusion delayed an appropriate response, allowing the virus to overwhelm emergency services, law enforcement, and eventually the military. The infected attacked indiscriminately and relentlessly, showing no signs of slowing as they tore through cities, towns, and even fortified zones. Attempts to contain the outbreak using quarantine protocols, barricades, and military intervention proved futile. The virus transmitted so quickly through bites, scratches, or contact with infected blood that containment was nearly impossible. Panic ensued across the United Kingdom as the population either succumbed to the infection or fled the country. In the ensuing chaos, transportation hubs became epicenters of bloodshed, and many evacuation efforts failed as the infected infiltrated crowds of refugees. By the 15th day following the virus's escape from the lab, the international community had taken notice. NATO and the United Nations imposed a total quarantine on mainland Britain, cutting it off from the rest of the world. No one was allowed in or out. This extreme measure prevented the virus from reaching other continents, as it was unable to naturally cross the ocean barriers surrounding the British Isles. By the 28th day after the initial infection, British society had completely collapsed. Government institutions ceased to function, communications went silent, and public infrastructure was abandoned. Most of the British population had either been killed, infected, or evacuated. Only a small number of uninfected survivors remained scattered throughout the ruins of cities and countryside. Despite the apocalyptic scenes within the UK, the rest of the world remained untouched, the ocean serving as an effective barrier against the virus's spread. Alice Harris and the second outbreak. Alice had survived the infection not by luck, but due to a unique genetic immunity. She was what the franchise calls a carrier, someone who harbors the Rage virus in their system without succumbing to its effects. This immunity allowed her to remain mentally and physically unaffected, but she could still transmit the virus to others through bodily fluids. 28 weeks after the original outbreak's 28th day, British refugees began to be repatriated to the Isle of Dogs, where a secure military-protected area called District 1 had been established by NATO forces and the US Army. Alice was discovered alive in the ruins and brought into District 1. Believing she posed no threat, medical staff unknowingly allowed her to come into contact with her husband, Don Harris. During their emotional reunion, Alice kissed Don, an act that transmitted the virus and instantly infected him. Don's transformation was violent and immediate. He murdered Alice and rampaged through District 1, triggering a second wave of the rage virus within the heart of the secure zone. The infection quickly spread among civilians and military personnel, unraveling months of progress and igniting chaos once more.
Abandon selective targeting. Shoot everything. Targets are now free. We've lost.
The military response and escalation. In response to the outbreak, the U.S. military initiated containment protocols that escalated from local lockdowns to full-scale extermination. Entire sectors were firebombed, and poison gas was released throughout the city in an attempt to kill both infected and uninfected survivors. Ground troops were ordered to shoot anything that moved, as command lost all ability to differentiate between carriers, civilians, and the infected. The result was a massacre, and London once again fell to the rage virus. During the chaos, Alice's son Andy, who, like his mother, was also immune to the symptoms, was rescued. Despite his ability to resist the effects of the virus, Andy was still a carrier, making him a potential threat to anyone around him. He and his sister Tammy were airlifted out of Britain by a helicopter pilot named Flynn, who was unaware of Andy's condition. The helicopter carried them across the English Channel to mainland Europe. The virus reaches the continent. In the days following their arrival, signs of infection began appearing in France. The final scene of 28 weeks later shows infected running through the Paris metro, suggesting that the virus had successfully reached continental Europe through Andy, the asymptomatic carrier. This marked a catastrophic failure of containment and raised the terrifying possibility of a global pandemic. However, according to information from extended franchise lore, the outbreak in Europe was quickly brought under control. Authorities managed to contain and eliminate the infected population in France before the virus could spread further. The damage was limited, and no widespread international outbreak occurred. Still, the cost was high, and the virus's presence beyond Britain had become a grim reality. Ongoing quarantine, and the future of the virus. Despite the virus's eradication from mainland Europe, the British Isles were once again sealed off indefinitely. Airspace over the UK was designated a permanent no-fly zone, and travel to and from the region was banned. For the next 27 years, Britain remained a forsaken zone, isolated from the world, and left to rot in silence. The legacy of the rage virus is one of fear, tragedy, and the persistent danger of human error. While the rest of the world has seemingly moved on, the threat of the infection continues to linger hidden in immune carriers or dormant strains. As history has shown, it only takes one misstep for the rage virus to erupt again. The origin of rage in the aftermath. In 28 days later, the aftermath, the rage virus's creation, is given a more detailed backstory. It all began with two scientists, Clive and Warren, who were employed to identify the neurochemical causes behind anger and excessive aggression in the human brain. Their goal was to develop a chemical inhibitor that could suppress violent emotional responses, which could have therapeutic applications for treating behavioral disorders. After some progress, they succeeded in creating an inhibitor that could, in theory, regulate aggressive behavior. But Warren, the more ambitious and morally questionable of the two, believed that traditional methods of distribution such as pills or aerosol dispersal would not be effective on a large scale. Inspired by a simple sneeze from Clive, Warren proposed the idea of using a virus to deliver the inhibitor to the population. For this purpose, he selected the Ebola virus as the carrier due to its strong infectivity and rapid transmission. This fusion of the inhibitor with the Ebola virus was tested on chimpanzees at the Primate Research Center. At first, it appeared promising, but within just 2 weeks, something went horribly wrong. Unpredictable mutations in the Ebola virus altered the behavior of the inhibitor. Rather than suppressing aggression, the mutated virus triggered the exact opposite. The infected subjects were driven into a constant state of extreme, uncontrollable rage. Upon realizing the catastrophic consequences of their work, Clive was horrified. Unable to justify the direction the research had taken, he abandoned the project and cut ties with Warren. In a final act of conscience, Clive contacted the Animal Freedom Front, a group opposed to animal testing, informing them of the unethical experiments. This led to the infamous break-in at the facility by 3 activists who unknowingly unleashed the rage virus onto the world. Alternate details in the 28 Days Later comic series. The 28 Days Later comic book series, which continues the timeline between the two films, provides alternate and expanded information regarding the origin and spread of the rage virus. Interestingly, the virus is said to have originated in London instead of Cambridge in this version of the story, though this could be a narrative inconsistency or a reinterpretation of the timeline. After the original outbreak devastated mainland Britain, it was assumed by the global community that the virus had been eradicated, as the infected reportedly died out due to starvation. However, this was not entirely true. Though southern England, including London, saw the majority of its infected population die off, parts of the United Kingdom remained overrun with the infected for months after. Scotland in particular, which experienced the outbreak later and had more isolated communities, still had active rage carriers roaming the countryside long after the supposed end of the outbreak. One specific case of the virus's unnoticed expansion occurred in the Shetland Islands. Although the wider public believed the virus to be contained solely within mainland Britain, the infection had somehow spread to Shetland. The exact method of transmission remains unclear, but the result was a swift and complete infection of the island's population. The American military, which was assisting in the UK's quarantine, quietly extended the no-travel zone to include Shetland, without informing the rest of the world. This cover-up ensured that knowledge of the virus's persistence remained classified. Dark experiments and military exploitation. During the height of the original outbreak, a covert facility on the Isle of Wight was revealed to be experimenting on prisoners believed to be terrorists by infecting them with the virus. The stated aim was to study the virus in hopes of developing a cure or vaccine. However, the experiments were highly unethical and took place without public oversight. In the months that followed, after the British mainland was declared free of infection, these black operations only intensified. With the chaos of the outbreak providing cover, the American military secretly used infected survivors in Scotland as test subjects. The new goal was no longer containment or a cure, but enhancement specifically to harness the virus's ability to amplify aggression and physical performance, potentially turning it into a biological combat stimulant. This twisted research effort did not go unnoticed. Selena, one of the protagonists from the original film, became aware of these operations while surviving in post-outbreak Britain. Furious at the military's willingness to exploit the virus for warfare, she took matters into her own hands. Selena launched a devastating assault on the facility and the personnel involved, ultimately destroying the entire operation and putting an end to the dangerous experiments. Final takeaway. What began as a project to suppress human rage ended in an apocalypse fueled by it. The rage virus didn't just infect bodies, it infected systems, cities, and the very hope of survival. As we've seen, it wasn't just the infected who doomed Britain, but those who thought they could play God. Stay tuned for more deep dives into the 28 Days Later universe. If you had fun, hit that like button, subscribe to Movie Creepers, and ring the bell so you don't miss the next big twist.